There are people who genuinely try. They put in effort, they experiment, they push forward. But the target area of life, whether it's money, relationships, friendships, hobbies, or anything else, seems to stay stuck in place. "I'm trying" is one of the psychological scenarios based on an internal conflict, where a person wants results, success, change, and at the same time, for internal reasons, is afraid of them and avoids them. We'll go through the criteria in detail, and if you recognize yourself even a little in this video may feel uncomfortable, but potentially very transformative. Not all of these points will apply to you, but you can mentally count how many of them resonate. After that, we'll look at real-life examples, and then break down the reasons and what can be done next. First sign: you get more exhausted than people who are objectively doing better than you. There are people who seem to take similar actions, but they get tired less, and their results are better. It doesn't matter whether it's blogging, career, or relationships. Things feel easier for them. They don't burn out. They don't constantly feel drained. Second, if someone from the outside told you that you're simply not trying hard enough, or not taking actions that actually lead to results, it would likely trigger inner resistance. Like, how is that possible? Look at how much I'm doing. I'm really trying. Third, at the same time, deep down, there's a thought that if I really tried better, it would work. There's a sense that you actually know which actions would be more effective, or how your time could be organized differently. But instead, you're mostly busy with noise and busyness. So the idea remains, I can do it. I just need to try harder. Someday, I'll do it properly. Next, you promise yourself rest and the chance to finally enjoy the result once it works out. But for some reason, it never quite works out. There is always something in the way. One mountain is followed by another, and behind that, yet another. Mountains of work, and behind them, new mountains. This pattern shows up more often in career-related areas, and less often in relationships, where the scenario tends to look slightly different. Next sign: you don't seem to have the energy or time to do the actions that actually lead to results. There are tasks where, if you do them, nothing really changes, but if you don't, things get worse. And somehow, you always have time for those. But for the actions that truly move things forward, there never seems to be enough time, energy, or attention. Busyness keeps appearing. Fires need to be put out. Relatives show up. Friends need help. There's always something to read, watch, or handle urgently. There are always urgent matters. But for the actions that actually create progress, it feels like nothing is left. These are the criteria, and the core formula of this scenario is simple. I do everything to win, but for some reason, I'm not allowed to win. Yet I must keep trying to win. It's like a boxer in the ring who has a contract to stay in the fight as long as possible, but under no circumstances to actually win. The bets are on the other side. The match has to look real. You can't just fall in the second round. So I fight. I push. I make sure it looks like I'm working hard. I know exactly what's expected of me. But I'm not allowed to win, because winning would lead to some dangerous consequence. And when I don't act in ways that would actually bring the desired result, it's not laziness, it's not stupidity, and it's not a lack of motivation. In reality, it's the opposite. It's motivation, a lot of it, but pulling in different directions and conflicting with itself. For example, the need for pleasure can conflict with the need for safety. This is a psychological scenario with very clear underlying causes. In general, achieving any goal can be described through a limited number of strategies. For instance, I play to win, I play to lose, or, in this case, I play not to win. Each of these strategies includes several specific scenarios. The one we're analyzing now is called, I'm trying. It's the Sisyphus scenario, where I keep pushing the stone up the hill over and over, aiming for the result, but one step before success, I do something that prevents me from reaching it. There's also a second version of this scenario. I do make it to the top. I push the stone all the way up, but then I slip, fall back, and start from zero again. For example, in the gym, someone reaches a certain level, stays there for 3 months, and then something happens. They drop back and have to start over. People do the same thing with money. Another version is the glass cannon scenario, where I do the work, but in a way that exhausts me so completely that afterward I think, that's it. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go on dates like this. I don't want to train like this. I don't want to develop my career or business like this. And that becomes permission to stop. No, I tried. We're not doing this anymore. Now let's move on to real-life examples. A colleague of mine, a psychologist, once asked me what he should do to grow his blog and build a stable client practice through it. I sent him a YouTube video about how psychologists can run a YouTube channel, and he started doing it. He worked on it for a month, then 2, then 3. He created content. He spent hours on it, but nothing worked. From the inside, it felt like he was trying, like he was doing everything possible to get results. But from the outside, it was clear that he was making content on topics that didn't actually interest his audience, just whatever came to mind. Or another common pattern. When one of his videos finally performed well and took off, he didn't repeat the success. He didn't continue exploring or developing that topic. Instead, he avoided it, as if he was afraid of repeating that success. A typical case with entrepreneurs looks similar. A person sets a financial target, takes actions aimed at reaching it, gets there, stays at that level for a while, and then unconsciously organizes their time, behavior, and circumstances in a way that pulls them back. They return to the familiar path of striving toward the same goal again, then fall back again, and repeat the cycle. Freelancers experience this pattern especially often. Now, about the origins of these not-to-win scenarios. In the 1940s, Neil Miller, along with other behaviorist researchers, much like B.F. Skinner with his pigeons, conducted a series of experiments on rats. These experiments explored how living beings behave when they experience conflicting motives. The setup was simple. On one end, a rat. On the other, food, which it could reach. But there was a condition. As the rat moved closer to the food, the intensity of electric shocks increased. At a certain point, the rat froze. It understood. Okay, going further will be unpleasant. That seems logical. But what matters most here is what happens next. Because food represents an approach motive, while electric shock represents an avoidance motive. And behavior emerges exactly at the point where these motivations collide. And depending on factors like how hungry the rat is, and depending on its past experience, if the electric shocks were stronger before, it remembers them as stronger, even if they no longer are. And because of that, it doesn't dare to test it again. Past experience and the level of hunger in the moment strongly influence how far the rat is willing to go down that corridor, which is essentially the same with people. How far someone goes in areas like media growth, income, or building relationships depends on very similar mechanisms. For some people, the idea of higher income, business growth, wealth, comfort, pleasure creates a sense of lightness, expansion, inner relaxation. For others, the same idea immediately triggers thoughts like taxes, criminals, unpredictability. The bank could freeze accounts for no reason. I'll have to deal with all of that. These images create completely different internal states. In general, people live with very different internal models of reality. What I can do, what I can't do, what I'm allowed to have, what I'm not allowed to have, what is possible in this world, what is impossible, what is dangerous, what isn't. And this part is especially important. What level of risk I believe I can handle, and what level I believe I can't. Some people live in avoidance, thinking, I won't cope with this, I won't survive it. Others live with a different assumption. Yes, there will be difficulties, but I'll handle them, or I'll find help. All of this is a representation of reality, not reality itself. And this is exactly what cognitive behavioral therapy works with, helping people identify their beliefs, adjust them, and make them more realistic and more useful. Now, this is the most important idea. Without it, real psychological change is impossible. At first glance, it may sound obvious. It can feel like, yes, sure, that makes sense. Let's move on. But don't rush. There's a critical nuance here. The principle of positive intention. At its core, every behavior has a goal, a motive. Everything I do with some intention that is beneficial to me. No living being deliberately does something that makes it feel worse, unless that discomfort is a way to get something better afterward. For example, a woman might intentionally not wear a jacket on a date, hoping that the man will offer his coat, and that this will create a moment of closeness or intimacy. So whatever a person does, whatever any living being does, it is always aimed at feeling better in the end. The "I'm trying" syndrome is built on important needs as well. The need for safety, the need for certainty, the need for significance and recognition, the need to avoid rejection in stable relationships, for example. In general, everything I do because it serves my needs in the best way available to me. If there were a better way to serve those needs, I would be doing that instead. I'm not diagnosing anyone through a screen, so I can't say exactly what your positive intentions are. But in practice, there is a fairly consistent list of motives that appear most often. So I'll name them. In what situations do people adopt the "I'm trying" scenario, the Sisyphus scenario, or the glass cannon scenario? What needs are being met? Most of these reasons fall into two categories, either gaining something or protecting oneself from something. The first is protection from disappointment in an idealized alternative life. As long as I'm not earning more, as long as I don't have a relationship, as long as I'm not playing the guitar, I can fantasize about it. I can dream. I can preserve meaning and hope that one day I'll do it all and life will finally be good. But if there's fear that in reality I won't play the guitar that well, that relationships aren't actually that pleasant, that they come with a lot of difficulty, that earning more money means solving complex problems, then it's safer not to go there. So I stay in the space where I dream, but don't act. But we also have to remember the inner critic. I can't just allow myself to do nothing. No, it demands action from me. It demands that I be the most successful, that I get straight A's everywhere. So what do? I try with all my strength and create the appearance that I'm working extremely hard toward winning. And I genuinely believe it. I really do. The second reason is the fear of being big, successful, wealthy, happy, rested, resourced. This fear can be tied to shame. For example, it can feel shameful to be happy when people around you are suffering. It can feel dangerous to be big, visible, influential, because then others will compete with me. It feels safer to be smaller. Then no one attacks. Maybe someone will even throw me a bone. The third reason is the right to suffer. As long as I'm trying and putting in effort, I'm allowed to suffer. I'm allowed to express sadness and pain, to talk about how hard it is. But if I worked 2 hours a day and earned the same amount I could have earned working 8, then in the remaining time, I have no protection. The fourth reason is approval from others. He really tried. He really did his best. Look how hard he's trying. The fifth reason is protection from criticism. You can't criticize someone who's clearly trying, who's making an effort, who's doing something. I'm not sitting still. Look how hard I'm trying. How dare you criticize me? By the way, this exact pattern was described by Eric Berne as the psychological game, "Look how hard I'm trying." For example, in a scenario where a husband and wife go to couples therapy, but the husband doesn't actually want to save the relationship, he wants a divorce. So yes, he attends therapy, but not to improve the relationship. He goes so that after 10 sessions he can say, "I did everything I could. You saw it. I tried. I really tried. That's it. Goodbye." In this way, responsibility is removed. After all, he did everything he could. God is my witness. I tried. The next reason is distraction from anxiety. When I solve endless tasks, when I organize my life so that there are always fires to put out, I become a hero who handles a massive amount of difficulties. But if I organize my life in a way that creates space, time, energy, breathing room, that's when anxiety starts to appear. What if I don't actually want to do what I'm doing? What if I don't want to live where I live? What if I want to change a long-standing format of my relationships? What if I don't really understand why I'm living at all? What if I'm afraid of the future and don't understand what might happen there? As long as I'm busy solving immediate problems, I'm calm. I don't think about the future. If you look at all these needs and parameters, you might ask, is this really the best way to meet them? By not reaching success? No, objectively, it's not the best way. But it is the best option available to the person who is living inside this scenario. Otherwise, they would be using a different one. You wouldn't dig a hole to plant a tree with a teaspoon if you had a proper shovel. At the same time, this is clearly not an optimal solution because it comes with many side effects, and the most significant one is this: I lose lifetime. It can feel as if time is infinite, and a person inside this scenario usually plays it out unconsciously. They don't notice it. They don't analyze it like, today I avoided anxiety in this way, and here I created a sense of safety by not achieving success, so no authority figures could shame me or demand something from me. Instead, the experience is, I'm trying, I'm doing things, I'm making an effort, but something is holding me back, and that something is worth understanding. The earlier, the better. At this point, it helps to think about life not as one long, continuous stretch of time. Not as, well, I'll probably live to 80, or 100, or even 120, so there's still plenty of time. A more useful way is to think in decades, from 20 to 30, from 30 to 40, from 40 to 50, from 50 to 60. Each of these decades has its own key tasks, things that are especially valuable to do at that stage, and that later may require far more effort, or may no longer be realistically accessible. When I play the I'm trying scenario instead of actually creating results, I may inefficiently spend, for example, the decade from 20 to 30, when investing in education and career development matters most, or from 30 to 40, when I miss opportunities to build a family and deep, stable connections, because I believe I still have time. And at some point, I may notice and ask myself honestly, how much longer am I willing to stay busy instead of creating real outcomes? Do I really want to spend another year, or 2, or 3 trying to earn money instead of actually earning it? Trying to run a blog instead of actually running one? Trying to build relationships instead of doing the specific actions that truly build them? And that's when the question arises. Okay, then I want to change this scenario. What do I do now? How do scenarios change? They don't change instantly. Anyone who promises that a single technique, a single session, or a single insight will completely change your life scenario is not being realistic. That's not how this works. Changing a scenario is like learning a skill, writing with your non-dominant hand, or learning to play a musical instrument. It requires time, neural restructuring, repeated practice. To think differently and act differently, time is required. But there is something that accelerates this process dramatically. And paradoxically, it's where everything begins, permission to play this scenario. The more I resist it, the more I label it as bad or wrong, and demand that I urgently change, the more resistance I create inside myself, because my real needs remain unseen and unacknowledged. The psyche will always hold on to the behavior that reliably meets its needs, in a familiar and proven way. Whether you like it or not, that's how it works. Some people come to this realization very slowly, but when they do, things often start to shift much faster. You can begin this step right now. The first step is always simple observation. Not why and not for what, but what exactly am I doing? And it's possible that through this video, you recognize places where you're playing the I'm trying role, instead of taking the actions that would actually lead to winning. The second step is to allow it. To allow yourself to see that there are real, important needs being met there. You may not fully understand them yet, but they are there. And I allow myself this behavior. I allow myself to postpone. I allow myself to try instead of act. I allow myself to avoid anxiety in this way. It seems that this behavior is serving something. Maybe it's the need for safety, maybe for significance, maybe protection from shame. There may be different things behind it. Over time, they can be described more precisely. But the very first step is, in fact, allowing yourself to play this scenario. And this is a difficult place. Many people get stuck right here and think, how can I possibly allow myself this? It's wrong to sabotage projects at work so I don't grow professionally. It's wrong to eat chocolate at night and scroll TikTok when I know I plan to wake up early and go for a run because I care about my health. How can I allow myself that? Yes, it's genuinely hard, and that's exactly why it's an important step. The earlier you take it, the easier it becomes to let go and move forward with less internal resistance. Because it seems that right here, there is real psychological resistance to even noticing what's happening. Even if you don't fully understand your needs yet, at this stage, I suggest you start by allowing this scenario. Gradually, you'll begin to notice those needs more clearly, and then you can ask yourself, and answer honestly, do I actually want to do something about this? Maybe not. And that, too, is a valid decision. But if the answer is yes, then what follows is no longer about insight, but about work. There are specific approaches: cognitive behavioral therapy, transactional analysis, behavioral experiments. There is a large set of tools that can genuinely help, but using them only makes sense when there is readiness to take responsibility, not for trying, but for results.